Let's take a look at an example that uses the Pulsar Function API instead of the native Java function, which gives us access to the context object, which will then give us access to a lot of things. And one of those that we're going to showcase in this video is access to the userConfig variable, as you can see here, that I place inside of my YAML file. So this gives you the option or the ability to then have a variable called filter string where you specify the value of that variable at the time you create the YAML file and deploy the function, instead of having it to hard code it in your code and then therefore it be made at the time the jar and nar file get created. This would allow you to create one function where you could put different regex strings, different filter strings, at the time you deploy the function, and also to reuse the same function with different values of these variables. So to be able to access that userConfig as part of the Pulsar Functions API, it's inside of the context object. In your POM file, we're going to add a new dependency for Pulsar Functions API. For this particular video, to access the userConfig, the version 2.10.2 is going to be new enough. Later on, we'll upgrade to use a more recent capability. But if you right-click on the pom.xml, go to Maven, reload project, and then you should be able to use any of the functionalities that are included in Pulsar Functions API. Next, I create a class called AccessUserConfigWithSDK. You can see here in my import, I import the function capability as well as the context object. And now we're implements on our class. This function refers to the function of the functions, Pulsar Functions API, not the native Java function. I'm also going to have my string here. I'm going to say my filter string is the one I want is filter_string. So then when I get inside of my class, or inside of my method, excuse me, I do ctx for my context object, which is now one of the inputs of my process method. I do ctx get userConfig value, get the filter string, so the my filter string is now equal to message1 when this particular function is executing. I say if I have a filter string, if my filter string is of type string, the class, and then if my message contains that string, return that, which means write a message to the output topic. Otherwise, return null. In terminal, I'm going to go ahead and run maven clean install to reproduce my jar and nar files. And then I'm going to head on over to terminal and we're going to deploy this using the YAML file I just showed you. Here in terminal, I have pulsarctl functions create with the flag function config file, and I'm referencing the YAML file AccessUserConfigWithSDK. It should say that the function got created successfully. Heading on over to the UI, I can see in my function tenant function namespace, clicking on functions on the left, that the AccessUserConfig now shows up in my functions list and it says that it's running. Now let's try and produce some messages to the input topic, which I've called input topic 2 in my YAML file, and we'll see if we get any results out of output topic 2. Test our function by creating a consumer on output topic 2. So if I go to sn consumer, I have output topic 2 here. So I'll go ahead and start that up. And once our consumer is started, we have a subscription in place. I will then produce 10 messages, and we expect that only the message that includes the word message1 is processed by the function, returns that to output topic 2. The others, the function would return null, and no message should get created in output topic 2. So I'll go ahead and start my producer. We produce 10 messages. If I go ahead and look at the results of my consumer, we can see that we receive only message 1. Back in the UI, for the function AccessUserConfig, we can see that 10 messages were processed.